Hey folks, kind of going to do a different video for you today. This is more for the people that are unfamiliar with how certain farming equipment works rather than the actual farmer. However, if you are an actual farmer, hey, thanks for watching, and please critique. Today's video is going to be about what a combine does and how it works. I'm no professional. I am a former engineer, but I never built or designed these things. I just drilled oil wells. I'm going to probably say some stuff that is not technically correct or not exactly right or screw up some terminology. But we're just going to go through stuff today, and we're going to try and keep a high level. I have a bad habit of getting too in-depth into certain things. What we have here today is a Case IH 8240 combine harvester with a MacDon FD135 header. We always call this guy a combine. Really, it's a bit of a slang because it's a combine harvester. It combines several processes that used to be either manpower, horsepower, like literal horsepower, or multiple machines into one machine. It combines all the steps, and not necessarily all at once, of processing grain from standing in a field to cleaned and in the hopper and ready to go to storage. This guy cuts it, gathers it, feeds it, threshes it, separates it, and then spreads it while storing the good stuff. Now, way back in the old days, long ago, they would go out and manually cut it, or they would, with a scythe, back in the medieval olden times, or with a horse-drawn sickle mower. And then they would come and they would bunch it into stooks, and then they would haul a threshing machine to that particular stook. Now, the threshing machine, its job was to essentially grind up the plant and separate the seeds from the waste material. And you had an auger off of one side where the clean grain was coming out, and you had another pile where all the waste was coming out. And so then you had to haul that grain away, and you had to haul the waste pile away, which was usually getting dumped into a horse cart as well. So let's look at the process here. Now, you might be in corn country or rice country or whatever, but the process is the same. It's going to cut the crop, it's going to gather it to the middle, and it's going to start feeding it. So once the crop is gathered, it's going to go through the feeder. This is the feeder house. Couple of big massive chains that they have big long paddles on them, and they drag it up to the rotor. I should take one of these out just so you guys can see. So the crop has been fed from the feeder into the rotor. Now the rotor itself is this tube in the middle, and it rotates like so. And as it rotates, it drags the crop across the concaves, which are stationary, and these rub bars rub the crop up against it and separate out, not necessarily separate, but break down the crop versus the grains. Now, these concaves can come in many different styles, and a lot of times you have to change them out depending on what kind of crop you're running. Essentially, at this point, grain and waste, small waste or residue, like so, is going to fall down onto this shaker pan. This shaker pan oscillates forward and backwards with some slight vertical to it, and everything's just kind of going to work its way back. Large chunks of stock and grain are not going to fall down through here. They're just going to keep getting carried out by the rotor in between the concaves. The rotor's designed to kind of drag it like a screw across all these different openings. Once it gets to the back, there shouldn't be any grain left in the stalks of the plant. There is potential that there are chunks of stalk, chunks of chaff, foreign objects, in this case a bolt, but that's because I'm changing that. You shouldn't have much for pods. They should, as they were going through, they would have rolled up. Like if you were to grab it in your hand, it breaks apart. That's essentially what's happening there. It's just getting rolled against each other and it breaks apart. The small stuff falls through. The big wiry stuff carries through. So we're at the point now where we have two different material flows. So material stream 1 is going up. It's continuing out the rotor and goes to the chopper. The chopper sizes all of your, we call it trash or residue. And so it's just spinning around, chops it between those knives and propels it out the back. Material flow B is going to be all of your smalls, your grains, your chaff, and your dockage. And it's going to go through these sieves that have adjustable vanes on. So we have adjustable sizing and we have adjustable fan speed so that we can get air going through. The air will separate the chaff. And the chaff is going to go up and join the chopper stream. All the heavy stuff is going to fall through the sieves. Sieve 1, the uppers are usually open slightly more. As it moves from the shaker deck back to your sieves, this is your pre-cleaner, your upper sieve, and then a lower sieve below that. There's air moving through these as well as oscillation, so it keeps the flow of crop moving across the whole thing with chaff, with stalks, with grain and dockage. It's going to fall through and be processed down below. And it gets processed by the sieve. The sieve works the same. Those fingers or vanes are adjustable and you can adjust the speed of your fan. And most of the separation happens on the top sieve. That's where all of your light stuff just gets blown out and goes out the back. And your peas or grain, whatever you're using, in this case it was peas, falls through. At this point, all of your small stuff would have been blown out the back. And on your bottom sieve, you got peas or your grain and some other stuff that you're just, it allows you to fine tune it so that you're getting, maybe you still have some bigger stuff falling through. So it separates out and then your grain falls right to the bottom of the machine and then is augered up. Stuff that falls off between the two, between the upper and lower, will get sent back to get rethreshed. This used to be called a rethresher. Now it's just called a return. Gets resent back to and discharged at the front of the, or at the end of the shaker deck, and runs through again. Just gives it another chance to separate out, does a better job cleaning. All the material that falls through the second set of sieves, which is the lower sieves, is clean grain. And it's going to go up and be stored in the hopper. Dad's hopper's folded in until a grain cart comes by and we dump into it, which is what the auger's for. All of the fines are going to come out of the back and join up with the spreader. Now the spreader's not in the right position. At this point, it should be, it never is perfect, but it should be nothing but chaff, dockage, and debris coming out the back. Now, there typically is some form of losses coming out the back. If you're really good at setting your machine, it should be minimal, and we check for that. One of these times I'll show you with the drop pan. There's two options for everything that's coming out the back. It can either be spread or it can be dropped. So dropped into a swath for baling or spread. The spreaders are high-speed paddles that launch all the chaff and straw out to a certain distance. In a perfect world, you want that distance to be the same width as your header so that you don't have strips in the field. And that is how a combine works. That's the Cliff Notes version of it. Its job is to cut, collect, thresh, clean, store and transport grain, and distribute chaff. If you're one of those that didn't know how a combine harvester worked, I hope you found this informative. For those of you farmers out there that are probably like, Devin, you did this wrong and that wrong, you're probably right, and I should probably hear about it. So feel free to leave me some hate or criticisms. It is what it is. It's really hard to not oversimplify and not overcomplicate at the same time. Anyhow, hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and thanks again for watching.